Is there a way to tell that that's rolling?
Yeah, it's red.
This is Libby Road and the Sound Epistemology podcast. On this episode, Rupert and I test out number 9 on the Street Epistemology Survey, the survey that helps us explore our relationship with truth. And this could be the best episode yet, despite the visit from the Portland landscapers. In addition to answering this particular survey question, we touch on subjects such as falsifiability, reliability of the tests we use, emotions and how we prioritize those with having an accurate map of reality, navigating our relationships, suffering and how believing true things can improve our relationship with suffering, Buddhism, and whether or not asking our spouse how we look in a dress is a reliable test. We hope you enjoy number 9 on the Street Epistemology Survey.
That brings us to question 9.
It does.
We should be satisfied with a test that can only confirm our claim. Disagree.
And I strongly disagree. This is one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Like falsifiability, testability. It seems really easy, but it can be kind of counterintuitive, kind of a difficult subject to wrap your brain around.
Yeah.
If something passes the test every single time, that kind of concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
It concerns me that maybe the test isn't a reliable test. Go ahead.
Well, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's why you strongly disagree. And I disagree because I think it could be that it's just so confirmable that the results would always confirm our claim. But I disagree we should be satisfied with that because I agree. I think that gives us... So I firmly disagree if we want to get into the come back to that mode. Because, yeah, that should be a red flag for you.
Red flag, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but I think, we shouldn't rule out that, well, I'm fucking right, It just happens that these tests keep confirming this because I'm right. But I think we should be... Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think we should still question it. We should still...
Yeah. I would start looking at the test and be like, okay, what is this test? How is this test demonstrating the reality of whatever it's testing? An example I like to give people is if your kid comes home every day and every test that he brings back from school is 100, like he aces every single test, 100. I mean, that would probably make me a proud parent, very proud parent, and I would probably hang that up on the wall. I'm not a parent. I have no idea what that feeling is like, but I can see myself being, hey, this boy's a genius.
That's my boy down there.
That's my boy. 100 every time. But hopefully I would start maybe investigating what these tests are like. And if everybody at school is constantly making 100 every time, week after week after week, I might start questioning the reliability of the tests that are being performed to find out, how much they've learned or whatever. Being satisfied with a test that can only confirm our claim causes me to take a look at the test and see sufficient that test is. If I have no way to tell what a failure component looks like, then I can't be confident that whatever the test is showing is accurate.
Yeah, and I think for me there's some sadness in the pessimism that you have to adopt to think that way. For better, for worse.
Yep.
Such that if you can never fucking be satisfied, that's a sad thing. I think. I think that's an unfortunate thing. But and that's why I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of strongly disagree, because for me there's take the win, man. Take the win. And I think it's unfortunate if someone is only questioning, it can't be 100%. I can't be that my child's genius.
Well, that would be inaccurate from, like, I wouldn't, or hopefully I wouldn't say it can't be that he's a genius. Mm. It's possible still that he's a genius. He's just acing every
given
test.
The test results, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that there's no way that he could ace every test. Mm-hmm. It would just cause me to take a look a little bit more deeply at the test and what it's measuring. Mm-hmm. And if there's no way to tell, if there's no way to falsify this claim, whatever the claim is, then I should be confident that the claim is true based on that test. And I'm okay with being sad and believing, like I'd rather believe something that's true and be sad about it than believing things that are not true and being happy about that.
And taking temporary comfort in that.
Yeah. Emotions, and this is just my perspective, being sad or happy about something has no effect on whether it's true or not. And I'm okay with accepting being sad and knowing the truth than to be delusional and happy about it. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I should rather be happy and mistaken than being sad and knowing the truth. But currently, I would prefer for my map of reality to line up with reality as closely as possible, even if that means having some feelings of sadness or anger or hurt. If it made me sad that I found out that my parents were not really my parents, I would still want to know if they were not my parents. Mm-hmm. Even if that made me sad. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example too. Would you want to carry on the facade?
Yeah. Would you want to know? Would you want to know if you're wrong, even if that made you sad? My answer, sitting here with,
your parents being your parents.
Yeah, being, having, privileges. I can say, well, it's easy to say that right now. Mm-hmm. But if I'm in a state of anger or sadness, I could have that feeling of, well, I would rather not know, I'd rather be happy. Mm-hmm. But currently, my position is I would rather have my map of reality be as accurate as possible, mm-hmm. even if that means learning sad things. Because we can't really avoid that if we're honest. We can't really avoid being sad and hurt and angry.
Not permanently. Well, I think that's the trouble with people that don't choose the truth as a way of living their lives. All the good intention in the world to save you from suffering is really misguided, because it just increases suffering. Because I agree with what you're saying. Given all the information, you can then make better choices. You can still love your mom and your dad that raised you, even if you come to find out thank you for gardening today. As loudly as possible. Yeah, you can still choose to interact with your parents with as much love and gratitude as you have and would have continued to were they your real parents. But you then have an opportunity, because you have all the information, to assess how you want to interact with your actual parent. And you being protected from that, that being hidden from you, that being kept from you, it's not nice. It's not okay. And it's unfortunate that people seem to think that that is okay. And so, yeah, I think it's admirable that you take on the temporary discomfort that the truth might bring, knowing that with all the information, you can make a more authentic decision about things instead of being delusional about these things, and maybe temporarily happy and maybe permanently happy if the denial goes that deep. But it is just a facade at the end of the day. It is just a pretend version of reality instead of you having the actual reality. So it kind of begs the question, I don't know what to do about this thing. I feel like maybe we need to I was going to go, and we're back. No, we're not. No, sir.
This is going to be fun to edit.
Yeah. All kind of blooper reel. Yeah.
Where you were saying that...
I'm flummoxed now.
Yeah, you were saying that... that happy delusion, that facade,
right,
of you can choose to continue the relationship with the parents that you thought were yours, and that you still have the ability to do that, but knowing what the truth is, although it could cause discomfort. You're saying that you agree. You would rather know and allow some of those feelings of anger and sadness if it meant having an accurate map.
Yeah, it comes up in relationship. Navigating communication in relationship, there's this concept of, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Yeah.
And this cuts to that. And of course, in a relationship, the idea is you'd rather be happy, so you let go of being right.
Yeah.
And what this is leading to is you'd rather be right than happy. So it's quite a fucking balancing act that we're doing here, because when it comes to like a marital relationship, a couple relationship, it seems that the guidance is let's have a peaceful, happy home rather than, Google it, you're wrong,
Yeah.
or whatever, when something comes up, a disagreement. And so I think that's why this stuff is so difficult for people, because we're not just talking about beliefs, we're not just talking about confidence, we're talking about how do we get on day to day, and is that an enjoyable experience or a miserable experience?
Mm-hmm.
And so when the question, we should be satisfied with a test that can only confirm our claim comes up, I think it does relate to, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And I think there's some validity in experiencing the suffering that life has, because it's always going to be there. We don't have to add to it, but it's a little bit unskillful to be denying it, because there is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
We just navigate it. And I think if we can navigate it with the truth as our ally, then it might well be a little easier to not increase suffering, to not do the tangled, wicked web of lies sort of thing that then unravels, and then, oh, now we've really got a problem.
Would you say that having accurate information helps reduce suffering?
I think it helps improve our relationship to suffering. If we want to have a more authentic relationship to suffering, we got to look it in the eye.
I like that. It improves our relationship with the suffering that's going to be there no matter what.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I like that. The subject of Buddhism comes up a lot whenever we talk, because we're both familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
We've both studied it and practiced in our own ways. And I think the subject of being happy or knowing the truth, the story of the journey that the Buddha had from the palace to the outside could be used as a pretty good example of this, because he was sheltered. As the story goes, he was a prince, and he lived in a palace his whole life up until a certain point that he wanted to go investigate the outside world, and his father didn't want him to be exposed to the outside world. He gave him all the things that he could ever want, lavish food, entertainment, but he wanted to know. He said, I would rather know the truth of the suffering of these people than to live in the palace for the rest of his life happy. He would rather know. He would rather have his map of reality to be accurate than to be catered to for the rest of his life in the palace. And so I think the way the story goes, his father allowed it, and he had a chauffeur that took him into the city, and he had to ask his chauffeur all of these situations, because he had never seen anybody sick. He had never seen anybody, get old and die. And so he was given examples. I'll make this really short because we can all go read the story, but he's basically shown examples of suffering that he was not exposed to in the palace, and he decided to choose the path of knowing what is, what is actually the case, instead of choosing the life of just being happy all the time. So that kind of reminds me of this subject kind of reminds me of that story.
Yeah, I think if we take it literally, we get into trouble. But if we take it as a parable of, there's an option. You can turn a blind eye, pretend these things aren't happening, and somehow, and maybe even successfully, sustain a level of happiness, not having all the information, not being grounded in actual reality, being protected from reality. Or you can embrace that there's going to be some discomfort, but that if you're navigating more authentically and more close to what's reality, that there's a bit more richness to that experience. And I suppose then that brings up, is there more of a richness to it? And I wonder, I think in that story, because I don't know these stories as well as you do, was there a nagging in him that something just doesn't feel right because everything was provided, and that curiosity led to going for the walk? So
yeah, he got curious. He was curious. He wanted to know.
How was he curious though? If everything's going fine, what spiked his curiosity?
Being exposed to, instances of.
But do you know what led to the exposure? What led to asking, "Can I go out and see what's happening in the streets?"
I think we'd have to read the story again.
That's fine. This isn't about Buddhism. It's just a story.
Yeah. I guess the way I would tie that to this particular statement is living in that palace and staying in that palace is using tests that only confirm what you already believe.
Well, not only that, but it's asking for a whole staff to create that illusional world for you, which we do. We surround ourselves with yes men, or we can, when we're in different phases of our life. But there are different times when we surround our people that just, oh yes, and maybe even put the things in place behind the scenes and get up early and, eggs are always available because when I wake up, they're there magically. Yeah. And again, it comes back to the walking through the parking lot, right down the middle of the thing.
You're in the channel. Get out of the channel. Yeah. Here's another quick one, which is fun. When the spouse asks their spouse, "How do I look in this dress?" Is that a good test? If you're only going to get information that confirms what you want to believe is true, like, I want to look good in this dress. Honey, do I look good in this dress? Of course, you look fabulous in that dress. Would they ever tell you that you don't? If they would never tell you that you don't, that's not a sufficient test to find out if you actually do look good in the dress. Yeah. It's kind of a good example. It's kind of a terrible example because it's subjective.
Well, it's a real world example.
But if you really want to know if you look good in the dress, maybe ask somebody that's not always going to say, yes, you look great in that dress every time.
You're talking about getting into your relationship with your ego and whether or not your ego can handle the fact that you look like a piece of shit in this suit, mister. Yeah. Do something about it.
Would you rather know?
Would you rather know, yeah? Or do you want to just...
Would you rather use a test that would tell you that you don't look good in the suit?
Yeah, and that leads to false confidence, and that leads to what does that do for us, and how do... I mean, that's opening up a can right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would want to know, I think. I would want to know. I wouldn't just want people to tell me that I look good in the suit if I actually didn't.
you do no wrong.
Right.
You
No
wanna know?
wrong only confirms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one way to live, but it asks everyone else to pick up the slack instead of us all collaborating, and there is no slack to be built up because of bolstering each other's egos. We can actually get on with some real
the
problem
truth,
solving instead of just solving the problem of how do we help you navigate your fragile little ego, or me, my fragile little ego.
Using tests that we're confident will give us the right answer, not just the answer we want.
Yeah.
Not the answer
that will
we're satisfied
sometimes
with.
not just confirm, but also deny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've completely lost train of thought now. And even more so now. It's almost like it's being done for comedic effect.
Right. If we wanted to film a satire of one of these interviews, we'd have all the ammunition we need.
So if also, what? What?
I strongly disagree.
You what? You strongly agree.
If I hear you right.
What you're saying is I have a note here.
Yeah. AHRRRR.
How do you spell that? Pain.